Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, the channel where we are making a computer role-playing game using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. A couple of videos ago, I talked about how I'd added what I called quirks to the game. Up until now, the monsters had been different at every settlement in their description, but mechanically they'd behaved exactly the same. And I have changed it so that there is a small number of species of monsters, although they're generated randomly each time you play the game. But for a given play of the game, there'll be a small number of different types of monsters, and each of the monsters will have a particular quirk, which is to say a way in which its behaviour is different. And I said that I would add ways to the game that the player can find out these quirks other than by stumbling into them. Of course, you can, if a group of monsters is invincible in battle, which is one of the possible quirks, you can find that out by trying to fight them and failing. But I said that I would also allow player characters or players to find it out using other ways, so that they don't have to suffer the consequences before they work out what the quirk is. So what I would like to do in this video is demonstrate the first one of those ways, which is a spell. So let's make a human character. You can see that the character has a new spell called Unlock the Heart. That won't be true in the version that you can download from itch.io. This is just for testing. But let's go around and try and find a settlement to interact with, and I'll show you how it works. There we go. You see a settlement up ahead. It is inhabited by creatures who have the appearance of the offspring of mushrooms and cats with no eyes. And you will see that there is now a new option, which is Cast Unlock the Heart. Which is just a normal link. Now, the way the spell works is similar to a few of the others, which is to say that you have to roll a d20 and add the average of intelligence and willpower, and if the total is over 20, then you successfully cast the spell, and if it isn't, then you don't, and either way it takes 10 minutes, similar to opening the way, which creates new tunnels. So let's see what happens. So we didn't do terribly well there, and it says you spend 10 minutes trying in vain to cast the spell, and it just gives us the same options again. If you fail, you can just you can try again, but it will take up 10 minutes each time. So let's just try one more. Yes, we got it, only just. The spell makes the nature of these creatures plain to you. They take great offence at arrogance. A haughty approach will never result in them allowing you to enter their settlement. So here we are back at the same space, but now we don't have the option of casting a spell, which makes sense because we've already found out everything that we can find out about it. So, of course, normally we would avoid a haughty approach, which is a bit of a shame because our willpower is quite high. But let's test it. It's by trying a haughty approach. Well, we can see that we rolled a 15, which is pretty good, and we have a willpower of 14, which is pretty good, and we got 29, which is pretty good, and yet we're getting this result, which is the second worst result. They tell you to go back the way you came or do battle. So we can see that the information that the spell gave us is correct, and the systems are working. So that's how it works in play. Let's now look at the code. So the first thing we need to do is just add the spell to the list of spells. So I'll go down to SC, $SC, which is the list of the names of spells. And we can see there's this new line here, which is just SC square bracket 7 unbracket equals quote unlock the heart unquote. So that's the name of the spell. And because a lot of the code relies on the length of the SC array, that is how many entries there are in the SC array, so we can see in this for loop, Z goes up to sc.length minus 1. Adding that just changes sc.length, and so now all of the other systems will automatically sort of update to account for the fact that it's got this new entry. So, for example, if you loot a settlement, you might find a scroll which allows you to cast Unlock the Heart, or you might be given a scroll that allows you to cast Unlock the Heart as a gift from interacting with monsters. But of course, all that is no good if you can't actually cast it. So let's now go to the part where you get to cast it, which is over here in Find. Find is the page that relates to when you approach a new settlement moving cautiously. So you don't stumble into the settlement, but you sort of stop before you see it and you get to choose what you're going to do. So you can see here we've got the option to cast Fairy's Fortune. So if $SL square bracket 2 end square bracket equals 1, then you have this link to the page Fortune, which is casting a Fairy's Fortune. Well, we have a very similar if, which is to do with $SL7. If $SL7 equals 1 and $CU, this is the new bit, and $CU exclamation mark equals 1, well, exclamation mark equals means does not equal, then we have the option to cast Unlock the Heart. So what is $CU? Well, we will see as we go on. I'll explain it as we get to it. But we can see that if we have $SL7 equal to 1, in other words, if the spells learnt array has been set to 1 for the slot that's relating to Unlock the Heart, then we have the option of trying to cast Unlock the Heart, and we do that by clicking this link that goes to the page Heart. So let's have a look at Heart. Well, first of all, we set LO equal to LO minus 2. LO is lamp oil, and we know that 1 point of LO is equal to 5 minutes of lamp oil in the fiction of the game. So in other words, we know that trying to cast the spell is going to cost us 10 minutes. And then we have this thing which we've seen before where we go set $SD equals heart 2 and then include square bracket light end square bracket. Well, we know from previous videos, if you remember anyway, that light is the system that deals with whenever your LO variable is lowered, you have to check if the players run out of lamp oil, because if they run out of lamp oil, I mean, there are exceptions to do with the cat's eye spell, etc., but basically if you run out of lamp oil, you are dead and the game is over. And if that's the case, well, we don't want anything else to happen. We just want to give them the message that they've run out of oil. And so what we do in that case is set DD to 1. And we know, if we remember anyway, we know that SD is the destination page that we go to from light, but in a very specific circumstance. And then we know that usually it's if exclamation mark DD, in other words, if DD has not been set to a non-zero value, then we include heart 2, which is the next page. So all this page is saying is reduce LO by 2 to account for 10 minutes of lamp oil being used up, because in the fiction of the game, casting the spell is some sort of ritual that takes a bit of time. Set the destination to heart 2 that we're going to go to from there if we happen to need this text. Otherwise, we include light, and if this isn't relevant, we come back and it is if DD has not been set to 1, in other words, if we're still alive, then just go straight to the same destination, heart 2. So let's look at heart 2, where the actual spell takes place. We set Z equal to the string spell, S-P-E-L-L, and we include roll and add. Well, roll and add is just where the system rolls a d20 and adds either a variable or some other number. Usually if it's not a variable, It's usually if it's not an attribute, so if it's not your willpower or your intelligence or dexterity or something, it's a combination of two of the attributes. And in this case, spell tells it to use the average of willpower and intelligence. So if, for example, it was int, it would just roll a d20 and add your intelligence score. But as it is, it rolls and adds the standard attributes used for spells, which is willpower and intelligence rounded up. And that generates a number or a variable, which is RR. And what happens next depends on the value of RR. If RR is greater than 20, then the spell has succeeded and various things happen. Else, the spell has failed and various things happen. So let's look at the failure, because that's pretty straightforward. If RR is 20 or less, it just says you spend 10 minutes trying in vain to cast the spell, and gives you a couple of line breaks, and then just include find. In other words, we go straight back to that page that we were on again. We will get all the options, including the option to try and cast Unlock the Heart again. If it succeeds, it's a bit more complicated. Firstly, it sets CU equal to 1. So that's the variable, you'll remember, that determines whether we get the option to cast the spell. If SL square bracket 7 n square bracket equals 1 and $CU does not equal 1. So then we get the option to cast Unlock the Heart. Well, in other words, successfully casting it will set CU to 1, and when we go back to find, we won't have the option to cast it again. And of course that makes sense, because if we've cast it successfully, we've learnt everything there is to be learnt about these creatures, and so there's no point trying to cast it again. So set CU equal to 1. The spell makes the nature of these creatures plain to you. They, and then we have a somewhat complicated bit of text here, and I'll show you what it does. First of all, it looks at $MO square bracket $CX n square bracket $CY n square bracket. This bit here. Well, CX and CY are your location. 0, 0 is the sort of entry point to the dungeon, and then it keeps track of your X variable and your Y variable to tell you where you are. MO CX CY is a slot in a two-dimensional array which tells you which set of monsters is at this particular location, if there are any monsters at this particular location. So if MOCXCY is 3, that tells you that the third species of monsters is the one that happens to be at this particular location. So having got MOCXCY, which will be a number, we then get $Q $MOCXCY. So in other words, we have this number, which is MOCXCY. So let's say that's 3. Well, in that case, we'll look at Q3. What Q3 is what quirk does monster species 3 have? And then that'll give us a number. So let's say monster species 3 has quirk 4, something like that. Then it'll give us QD of that number. QD stands for quirk description, and it is the text description of that particular quirk. So we end up with $QD square bracket $Q square bracket $MO square bracket $CX n square bracket CY, or excuse me, $CY n square bracket, and then n square bracket. So find what sort of monsters there are, which is MOCXCY. Find what sort of quirk that sort of monster has, which is $Q, and then print the text description that corresponds to that number of quirk, which is QD. So we print that plus a full stop and 2 line breaks, and then we have a link which says continue and sends us on to the page find, which is where we were before, of course. So we'll get this information that says the spell makes the nature of the creatures plain to you. They are invincible in battle. They hate informality or whatever it may be. and you go, okay, great, click on that, and we go back to find, and because CU is equal to 1, this if won't be assessed positively, so it'll just skip all that. And then it sets CU equal to 0. So why does it set CU equal to 0? Well, because let's say you go to this particular settlement, you cast unlock the heart, it gives you the description of the monsters. There's no need to give you the option to cast that spell again in this settlement. Great. You interact with the monsters, however that is, you go away, you come to another settlement. Well, if CU is equal to 1, you're not going to get the option to cast unlock the heart at that new settlement, but that might be quite relevant to the new settlement. You might want to know. It might be a new species of monster, and you might want to know what their nature is, and you might be prepared to risk the 10 or to spend the 10 minutes. So we need to set CU equal to 0 immediately after not giving them the option to cast unlock the heart for future use. And that is how that particular spell works. It's not the only way in which I'm going to allow players to find out information about other species, but I will cover those other ways in a future video. So I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.